source of rights is duty. To quote the father of nation, Mahatma Gandhi, if we all discharge our duties, rights will not be far to seek. If leaving duties unperformed, we run after rights, they will escape us like a will-o'-the-wisp. The more we pursue them, the further they fly. Unquote. Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV on fundamental duties. These duties are an important part of Indian Constitution. The prescribed duties embody the highest ideals preached by our great saints, philosophers, social reformers and political leaders. In this edition, let's tell you all about these duties. So come along. Duties are enshrined in the Constitution of India as a moral obligation upon the citizen to uphold the spirit of democracy and patriotism. As citizens of India, we have certain rights guaranteed to us for our well-being. Similarly, there are certain duties we are expected to fulfill. Citizenship is the validation of the social contract between the people of the country and the government elected by them that the Constitution of the country has legitimized. The rights of the citizens are the very basis of this very contract. While emphasizing rights, it is very important that the citizens are also sincere about their duties towards the society and the country, predominantly when it concerns issues like safety and security. The scrutiny of fundamental duties indicates that many of them refer to the values that have always been part of the Indian tradition, its mythology, religion, and practices. India is one of the few countries with a glorious tradition of democracy since ancient times, where people have had a rich tradition of performing their duty. Since time immemorial, an individual's kartavya, the performance of the individual's duty towards society, country, and parents, has always been emphasized. The Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana also ask the people to perform their duties. Mahatma Gandhi said the very performance of a duty secures us the corresponding rights. Rights cannot be divorced from duties. Mahatma Gandhi also said, and I quote, "Satyagraha was born, for I was always striving to decide what my duty was." Unquote. Swami Vivekananda observed, and I quote, "It is the duty of every person to contribute to the development and progress of India." The fundamental duties help to regulate the behavior of the citizens and to bring about excellence in all the spheres of the citizens.
I appeal to all of you. You will turn out to be better citizens of this country. You will catalyze a good ecosystem once you follow yourself the fundamental duties given in the Constitution and also ensure that others equally follow that.
A very significant feature of Indian Constitution is that it balances the rights and duties of citizens. The duties of the citizen were not incorporated in the original Constitution of India at the time of its commencement in 1950. In 1976, the 42nd Amendment added the fundamental duties of citizens to the Constitution. Originally, there were 10 duties. However, by the 86th Amendment in 2002, they had increased to 11. In 1976, the Swarn Singh Committee was set up after Indira Gandhi declared a national emergency. The committee was tasked with exploring the question of amending the Constitution of India. The Swarn Singh Committee recommended several changes in the Constitution that were accepted by the Congress government. It borrowed the concept of fundamental duties from the former Soviet Union Constitution, in which the socialist government held that both rights and duties were equally important. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 amended the Indian Constitution by adding 10 fundamental duties. The 86th Amendment Act of 2002 added the subsequent 11th fundamental duty. The fundamental duty suggested by the Swarn Singh Committee in 1976 came in the backdrop of country's internal situation of 1975 to 1977. They served as a reminder that while exercising their rights, Individuals must be mindful of the obligations they owe to their nation, society, and fellow citizens. However, these duties, like the directive principles, are non-justiciable in nature. Three things make a nation. First, the noble ideals that bind it. Second is the core belief that citizens are capable of achieving the noble ideals. And third is the striving for excellence by the country's citizens. Let's take a look at our fundamental duties. Article 51A that constitutes Part 4A of Constitution reads that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions like the national flag and the national anthem. To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. To promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic and regional or sectional diversities. To renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. To value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. To protect and improve the natural environment like forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. To develop the scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry and reform. To safeguard public property and to abjure violence. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavour and achievement. Subsequently, the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added the duty for any parent or guardian to provide opportunities for the education of the child or ward between the age of 6 and 14. It was added when Article 21A made education a fundamental right.
महात्मा गांधी कहते थे कि हमारे अधिकार हमारे वो कर्तव्य हैं जिन्हें हम सच्ची इंटीग्रिटी और डेडिकेशन के साथ पूरा करते हैं। आज अमृत काल में जब हम आजादी के 75 वर्ष पूर्ण करके अगले 25 वर्षों की यात्रा शुरू कर रहे हैं तो संविधान का ये मंत्र देश के लिए एक संकल्प बन रहा है। आजादी का यह अमृत काल देश के लिए कर्तव्य काल है। चाहे व्यक्ति हो या संस्थाएं, हमारे दायित्व ही आज हमारी पहली प्राथमिकता है। अपने कर्तव्य पथ पर चलते हुए ही हम देश को विकास की नई ऊंचाई पर ले जा सकते हैं।
Fundamental duties serve as a constant reminder to every citizen that while the Constitution specifically conferred on them certain fundamental rights, it also requires citizens to observe basic norms of democratic conduct and democratic behavior. The duties serve as a warning to the people to refrain from anti-social activities that disrespect the nation, like burning the flag, destroying public property, or disturbing public peace. The duties help in the promotion of a sense of discipline and commitment towards the nation. It also helps in realizing national goals through the active participation of citizens. The fundamental duties are neither pedantic or technical. They were incorporated as the key to social transformation. The fundamental duties help the court in determining the constitutionality of the law. The Supreme Court of India has issued directions to the government to create a conducive environment for the effective fulfillment of these duties.
It became necessary because once you are giving fundamental rights to the individual, it also became imperative that they must be made conscious about the duties which they are supposed to follow, and most of the duties are with regard to their nations. There can't be any right without a duty. Therefore, the chapter relating to duties was specifically incorporated in the Constitution by way of Chapter 4A in 1976. We talk about the responsibilities given to the state under the directive principle of state policy. We talk about fundamental rights given to the individual, and therefore incorporating fundamental duties also became very necessary so that people know about it. Many a time we have found that people always talk about their rights, but they don't speak about the duties which they owe. And suppose I have a fundamental rights of walking on the road. Similarly, it's my duty that I ensure that other can also walk safely. And this has been recognized even by the Supreme Court also in number of decisions given from time to time. And a time has come when we find that non-enforcement or non-obliging to the following of the fundamental duties should be made a punishable offense under the law. Of course, it is provided in the Constitution, but there is no penal provision for not following the fundamental duties. I think a time has come when a separate law needed to be enacted where if any person is not following the fundamental duties, he should be punished under the law.
The famous landmark case of Minerva Mills versus Union of India, the courts held that there may be a rule which imposes obligation on an individual or authority, and yet it may not be enforceable in a court of law, and therefore not give rise to a corresponding right or obligation in another person. But it would still be a legal rule because it prescribes a norm of conduct to be followed by such individual or authority. Over a period of time, there have been various legislations which give teeth to fundamental duties like the Environment Protection Act, Representative People's Act, and the Forest Conservation Act, and indirectly impose obligations, provide for specifications and penalties and punishments, and act as stringent regulations.
In 1998, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government appointed the Justice J.S. Verma Committee to operationalize the suggestions to teach fundamental duties to the citizens of the country. The committee submitted its report with many actionable recommendations for the government. The committee recommended that the duty of citizens to vote in elections, actively participate in the democratic progress of governance, and paying taxes should be included in Article 51A of the Constitution. It also identified legal provisions for the implementation of the fundamental duties, like the Prevention of Insults to the National Honor Act of 1971, that prevents disrespect to the Constitution of India, the national flag, and the national anthem. The Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1955 that provides for punishment for offences related to caste and religion. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967 that provides for the declaration of a communal organisation as an unlawful association. The Wildlife Protection Act that prohibits trade in rare and endangered species. The Forest Conservation Act that checks indiscriminate deforestation and diversion of forest land for non-forest purposes. The Representation of the People's Act of 1951 that provides for the disqualification of members of parliament or state legislature for indulging in corrupt practices. Let's also take a look at the relationship between the fundamental rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. Fundamental rights are provided to Indian people by the Constitution for their protection and well-being, among other things. They're also known as the basic human rights of citizens. Meanwhile, the directive principles are provided by the Constitution for the government to create legislation. These are not court-enforceable provisions like the fundamental rights. These principles serve as essential parameters for the state's governance while the state is developing and adopting legislation. However, the fundamental duties are the moral responsibilities of all the people that contribute to the promotion of patriotism and Indian unity. Like the directive principles, they are not enforceable by the courts because they involve persons and the nation. When legislation conflicts with the fundamental rights, directive principles have been invoked to defend the constitutional legality of the legislation. Fundamental rights and directive principles have also been used in conjunction to create the foundation of legislation for the welfare of citizens. Rights and duties have to exist together. Rights without duties lead to anarchy. In this context, the fundamental duties serve as a constant reminder of national goals, as well as to inculcate a profound sense of social responsibility. The court and civil society organizations, political parties and governments have also underlined the significance of fundamental duties for the overall development of the society. Both the union and state governments should sensitize the people and create general awareness about fundamental duties amongst the citizens. People should be taught their duty to vote in elections, pay taxes, and actively participate in the democratic process of governance. Fundamental duties have been described by critics as a code of moral precepts due to their non-justiciable character. The list of duties is definitely not exhaustive, as it does not cover other important duties like casting vote, paying taxes, family planning, and so on. But fundamental duties certainly lead to national integration, unity, and cultural harmony among the members of different castes, creeds within the Indian society. And although it was the erstwhile USSR that was the first country to adopt fundamental duties in its constitution, now both communist and non-communist countries of the world have provisions for fundamental duties. Notwithstanding their non-enforceability, fundamental obligations are the essence of a democratic state like India. In a sense, they appeal to the citizens' innate sense of patriotism, the feeling of pride for the country, and the readiness to undertake national tasks for the collective good of all Indians. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now from my side.